Hello and welcome to Intelligent Pod, where we unravel the mysteries of intelligence in humans, machines, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sophie Lane, and today we're delving into a topic that feels like it's leapt straight from the pages of science fiction: human-swarm interactions, and how we're beginning to collaborate with autonomous systems on a scale that was unimaginable just a decade ago. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a curious skeptic, or someone who just loves exploring the future, you're in for an engaging ride. We'll be unpacking what human-swarm interaction really means, why it matters, and how it's affecting industries, our daily lives, and even our sense of what it means to work alongside machines. And of course, I'll share some practical advice for navigating this buzzing new world. So let's get started. First off, let's break down the jargon. When we talk about swarms in the context of technology, we're not referring to bees or birds, though interestingly, those creatures inspired the terminology. A swarm, in tech speak, is a group of autonomous agents, think robots or drones, that coordinate their actions to achieve a collective goal. Unlike a single robot, a swarm relies on the power of numbers and decentralization. Each agent follows simple rules, but together, they create complex adaptive behaviors. So, what does human-swarm interaction look like? Imagine a firefighter directing a swarm of drones to survey a wildfire, or a warehouse worker overseeing a fleet of robotic carts delivering packages. Or perhaps even more futuristic, a surgeon guiding a team of tiny medical robots to perform a delicate procedure. The idea is that humans and autonomous systems are not just coexisting, they're communicating, collaborating, and learning from each other. This isn't just theoretical. According to a 2023 report by the Robotics Industry Association, over 60% of large distribution centers in the United States now employ swarms of autonomous robots, often overseen by human supervisors. And in agriculture, the use of drone swarms for crop monitoring and pesticide application has increased by more than 40% in the last 5 years. These numbers aren't just impressive, they're a signal that this technology is moving from the lab to the real world fast. But let's pause for a second. Why swarms? Why not just make one super smart robot that does everything? Well, nature gives us a clue. Flocks of birds, ants in a colony, schools of fish, they all display remarkable intelligence as a group, even though each individual is following simple rules. Swarms are robust. If one member fails, the group adapts. They're scalable. You can add or remove members without disrupting the system. And they're flexible. Swarms can tackle problems that are too complex or dangerous for humans, or even for a single machine. Now I want to explore how we, as humans, fit into this picture. How do we interact with these swarms? What does collaboration look like? And what are the psychological, scientific, and cultural implications of this new partnership? Let's start with the psychological perspective. Humans are used to interacting with other humans and maybe with single machines. Think of your smartphone or your laptop. But when you're in charge of a swarm, say 20 drones, it's a completely different experience. The cognitive load increases, and so does the need for new skills. There's a fascinating study from MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, published in 2021, which found that people tend to anthropomorphize swarms, treating them as a single entity rather than a collection of individuals. This can be helpful, but it can also lead to errors in judgment. For example, if one drone in a swarm malfunctions, we may not notice until it affects the group's performance. The researchers also observed that effective communication tools, like visual dashboards showing swarm behavior, can make it much easier for humans to direct and trust these systems. On the scientific front, designing swarms that can understand and respond to human input is a huge challenge. It's not just about programming robots to follow orders. It's about creating feedback loops where humans and machines can learn from each other. There's a branch of research called mixed initiative control, where both the human and the swarm can take the lead depending on the situation. For example, in disaster response, a human might set the overall goals, like search this area for survivors, while the swarm decides how to divide up the task, adapt to obstacles, and report back. This approach leverages the strengths of both sides, human intuition and creativity, plus the swarm's speed and resilience. Culturally, human-swarm interaction is already shaping how we think about work, safety, and even ethics. There's a story that stuck with me from a recent conference on autonomous systems. A group of farmers in Japan began using drone swarms to monitor rice fields. At first, the older generation was skeptical. How can machines know what a human farmer knows? But over time, they found that the drones could spot patterns in crop health that humans often missed. The swarm became a kind of partner, an extra set of eyes, and in a way, a new member of the farming community. This blending of tradition and innovation is happening in industries around the world. Of course, it's not all smooth sailing. There are real concerns about job displacement, about safety, about the unpredictability of autonomous systems. How do we ensure that swarms act ethically? Who's responsible if something goes wrong? These are questions we're just beginning to answer, and they require input from engineers, policymakers, ethicists, and, crucially, the people who work alongside these systems every day. So let's bring it down to earth. What does all this mean for you? Whether you're in tech, education, healthcare, or any field that's being touched by automation, here are a few actionable tips for engaging with autonomous systems, especially swarms. First, get comfortable with the basics of how these systems work. You don't need to be a robotics engineer, but understanding the principles, like decentralization, emergent behavior, and feedback, can help demystify the technology. Second, practice clear communication. When interacting with a swarm, ambiguity can lead to mistakes. Use precise instructions and make sure you have a way to monitor what the swarm is doing. Visual dashboards, alerts, and regular check-ins are your friends. Third, be open to learning from the system. Swarms can process information in ways that humans can't, spotting trends, identifying anomalies, and adapting on the fly. Treat the swarm as a collaborator, not just a tool. Fourth, advocate for transparency and ethics. Ask questions about how decisions are made, how data is used, and what safeguards are in place. Your voice matters, especially as these technologies become more embedded in our lives. Finally, don't be afraid to experiment. The future of human-swarm interaction is being written right now. Try new tools, give feedback, and share your experiences with others. The more we engage, the better these systems will become. As we wrap up, let's reflect on the big picture. Human-swarm interaction isn't just about technology. It's about partnership. It's about building systems that amplify our strengths, compensate for our weaknesses, and open up new possibilities. Like the flocks and colonies that inspired them, swarms remind us that intelligence isn't just about individuals. It's about collaboration. So the next time you see a fleet of delivery robots on the sidewalk or read about drones fighting wildfires, remember, we're not just creating smarter machines. We're learning how to be smarter together. Thank you so much for joining me today on Intelligent Pod. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps new listeners find the show. For show notes, links to the studies and stories I mentioned, and more resources on human-swarm interaction, visit intelligentpod.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Email me anytime at sophie@intelligentpod.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring the intelligent world around you.